Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
What about you?
Space Force Base.
Well, I'm from right here now.
Oh, really?
I've
Okay.
been here for 30 years now.
Have you been up here to the wings of the Rockies? This is where we started.
Were you nervous
What?
when you showed up?
You show me what?
We are currently standing in front of the Hangar 1, which is where we, on July the 11th, 1955, were sworn in as the first members of the Air Force Cadet Wing.
I don't know that I felt like we were making history, but you know, as a young 18-year-old kid, and we had the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, the Secretary of the Air Force, and Walter Cronkite, which we had seen all of our lives on newscasts. Yeah, we were in awe. That was for sure. So,
I'm not sure we knew much, just as you. On I-Day, you were in shock, and that's all you probably remember. Isn't it?
I try not to remember much about it.
Yeah. Did you think about going to like West Point or Annapolis?
yeah.
Or was it like, oh, I have to go do this?
My senator that appointed me said, why don't you go to West Point? And I said, I just want to go in the Air Force because, and I believe that it's an opportunity. That unknown is an opportunity. The good old days were good old days in retrospect, and a lot of us old timers say, oh, it's so easy now. Well, it isn't easy now, and you can be very proud of what you've done. Having been a professor, I can tell you your academics are far harder than ours, although ours at the time were hard. But you're doing things that we never did. Our computer was a slide rule.
You know what a slide rule is?
I've seen one in
You've
books
seen
here.
one in books, huh?
I think anyone in our class would tell you the most important thing that we got was the honor code and system. And while the system has changed since we were here, the code is not. It has been invariant over the years. Well, it was the academic building, and we spent obviously most of our time over here, and they were just classrooms, and it really we had some of the greatest professors in the world, because the academy then, probably as now, wanted to have professors who could influence cadets. And in those days, a lot of them were pilots. They told us a lot of stories, and it was very motivational for our academic staff or professors.
When we were marching to class, we had to march a lot longer distance to class every day. So I guess we got probably more experience marching than they do today. And we marched from outside the North Gate there a little bit, 200 or 300 yards up the road, and then turned and marched all the way up into the academy. For me, you know, marching up that hill all the way up into the academy was an emotional time to be finally getting to our final home at the academy, and we got to spend 9 months.
It was really the first time most of us had ever seen the academy's buildings. So we marched, and as Larry says, when we came over the hill, there it was.
I think for me to hear all your stories and then your careers and things like that's all starting within the next just couple days, it feels like. So it's something that really just puts it into perspective for all of us.
It's cool that a lot of what you were talking about, like we've carried on in some way. So when you talked about like the buildings and how they're still named after the same thing, and this when we were going through the book, like looking at the squadron patches, and even though there's more squadrons, like it's still cool how a lot of that stuff is still here that you started.
Well, you are carrying on, and will be carrying on as soon as you graduate, what the Air Force Academy is all about. And I think Larry would agree that we envy you for the opportunities which you're about to students have?
So I got selected to be a cyber officer, so I'll be serving in the Air Force as a cyber officer. Kind of goes back to what you were saying in the beginning about doing the unknown and how it's this next step in the way we do warfare. So I was really intrigued by it and excited about it, and that's why I wanted to get involved. And hopefully I'll get to be able to touch different parts of the Air Force since cyber's connected to everything.
I'll be going into the Space Force as a developmental engineer. And what's kind of exciting about that is kind of like your class starting with something new. The Space Force is very new and doesn't really have an established culture yet, so if I can be a bit of a part of that, establishing that, it's really exciting to be.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a pilot. I get to go to Columbus Air Force Base to be able to do pilot training, but I think the biggest thing for me and just being at the academy was always being able to compete and try and be the best you can. And I think with a pilot slot, you get to just do that, and you get to go out and continue to show the rest of the world why we are the best Air Force in the world. And so I'm excited to be able to continue to do that.
What aircraft will you be flying to start with?
Something fast, hopefully. So, yes, sir.
Despite what you may hear, they have not gone to hell. They're very good, and I love interacting with cadets because it renews faith in the country, not just young people, but if everyone were like our cadets, we would be very well off in this country.
I mean, people at Annapolis and West Point can't say oh, we met the first class that ever went through here.
No.
So it's really cool to be able to speak to you and learn about what it was like in those first couple of years. So it's just a cool experience to be able to speak to you. So thank you.